it's a culture genie. And the topic of today is going to be the Arab world. Few people seem to be aware of the diversity and hugeness of the Arabic world. For the purposes of this video, I will be defining the Arabic world as the sphere where Arabic and its derived dialects are spoken, both historically and in the present. I say derived dialects because there is quite a large difference between the various dialects of Arabic and the official Arabic language known as Al-Fusha. Believe me when I say that certain dialects are totally incomprehensible for others that are not used to that dialect. For example, the sound or letter Qaf can be pronounced as Qaf, Kaf, Raf, Af, and in a lot more ways, depending on where you live and how it is pronounced in that area. However, there still exists an official Arabic language that is a modernized version of the language found in the Quran and in famous Arabic poetry. This language is used in communications between Arabs when their native dialects are not close enough to be understandable. It's also used in official documents and in official public news and in certain academic settings as well. However, Standard Arabic is not the native tongue and the language used in everyday communication for most Arabs. It also happens that when you speak Arabic, certain Arabs will often mix the local dialect with the standard language. So sometimes the borders are a lot more blurred than a simple distinction between the standard Arabic language and the dialects as completely separate. The use of standard Arabic is of course also dependent upon education level and if you're able to read and write Arabic. More highly educated individuals tend to use more standard Arabic, whereas if you're illiterate, you will probably not use much standard Arabic and rather prefer to use your own dialect. Now, however you define Arabic as a language, it is the official language in 24 states and a special minority status in several more. As for regards a certain dialect of Arabic that became an official language, that dialect of Arabic could also be argued to be the official language in a way of Malta, as Maltese could be considered just a very diverged dialect of Arabic, though it is considered an independent language. However, as you define it, the countries where Arabic is spoken are separate independent countries with their own politics, traditions and history. You also have ancient minorities of Arabic speakers as far away as in China, India and the middle of Africa, and many other places, as the Arabic world has had a history of colonialization and setting up trading posts in various locations. These factors have made it so that Arabic can be considered a language spoken in some form by over 400 million people, though this also includes those that have learned the language, as Arabic could be considered a civilizational language, as it is the language in which the Quran was revealed, and thus it is the liturgical language of Islam, which you must use when you recite the Quran. However, going back to the Arabic countries, in total they cover an area of over 5 million square miles, or over 13 million square kilometers. That makes only Russia as the only country on Earth that is larger than the entire Arab world in terms of area. All you can see below Turkey, north of the Sahara Desert, west to Iran and east to the Atlantic Sea. Everything is part of the Arab world here.
Except this port, and we don't talk about this port. No, we don't talk about this area at all. Let's just ignore it.
In any case, this is an enormous area. And it's not all desert either, but there exist mountain chains, swamps, and shorelines, and even dense forests. The geography is actually a lot more complex than most people give it credit to. Also, the majority of Arabs are not Bedouins living in the desert. They actually live in cities. Though, as I've shown here, there are a lot more environments than just a desert. Actually, some of the areas of the Middle East are among the most fertile areas of the world, meaning that a majority of people that live outside of the cities are actually not semi-nomadic Bedouins, but rather farmers. Now, with the geography out of the way, let's talk religion. Islam, and particularly Sunni Islam, is the majority religion in most Arab countries. However, there are exceptions, with Iraq and Lebanon, who have either Shia minorities, in the case of, for example, Iraq, or there is no clear majority in, for example, Lebanon. And there is also Oman, who have their own type of Islam, known as Ibadi Islam, that makes up a large amount of the population in terms of believers. There also exist a lot of minorities of various sects and subdivisions within Islam, within the Arabic countries. However, this covers also the fact that there exist a lot of other religions among Arab speakers. There exist versions of Christianity, especially in the Lebanon area, but also in other countries, and with other religions, like minority religions like the Druze, though the Druze could be considered a part of Islam. One very important thing before I continue. It is important here that I mention that the Islamic world and the Arab world is not exactly the same thing. Sure, the Quran was revealed in Arabic, but that does not mean that every Muslim is an Arab. So the Arabic world is actually a lot smaller than the entire Islamic civilization or world. And you also have the fact that there exist traditions and culture also outside of Islam in the Arabic world. Islam and the Arabic world is not 100% the same thing. I could go into a lot of detail about religion here, but I will try to minimize the focus upon Islam and religion generally, as that is something that is usually discussed with regards to the Arab world. Because there exist a lot of other things that could be discussed and should be discussed with regards to diversity and the hugeness of the Arabic world. Because it's important to notice that there exists a large variety of local traditions and customs, and these are sometimes at odds with official Islamic teachings. And what is called Islam can be very broad and very malleable, and a lot of local culture can seep into local practices, or even be more central than what is officially Islamic. It is important to know that there are large differences between the various populations of Arabs and the various Arabic countries, and where in the country you are. For example, an Arabic-speaking person in Beirut will not be the same as someone living in the rural areas of Sudan. These are two very different worlds, probably in terms of education, in terms of means of living, in terms of opportunities for improvement of life, and in terms of how they view the world and what is important. The same can be said of almost all Arabic countries and various places in them. Not every Arab is like a rich Gulf Arab or a Bedouin, and some places of the Arab world are actually quite progressive or modernistic, at least in comparison to other places. Tunisia and Lebanon are not as socially conservative as, for example, countries on the Arabic Peninsula and the Sub-Saharan countries of Sudan and Mauritania. Due to a history of colonialism, a lot of the Arab countries also have people capable of speaking French. And you can see the effect of, for example, French upon the speakers in the western part of the Arabic world and in Lebanon. Though their language has become a little bit hard to understand for someone that is not capable of speaking French, as they tend to mix Arabic with French. Speak about history and colonialism. Actually, the Arabs have a history that goes back thousands of years. I have of course Islam, and it spread for about 1400 years ago. But even earlier, you had the Nabateans, and even the old city of Palmyra several hundred of years before Islam are all parts of Arabic history, or the history of peoples that were very closely related to the Arabs, that would later spread across the entire Middle East. If you count the southern people of the Arabic Peninsula as Arabs, then you also have a history that is almost as far back in history as the first civilizations. Now, these southern Semitic peoples were a different kind of people than the Arabs that we know today in terms of language. They spoke southern Semitic languages rather than Arabic, that is a central Semitic language. But they did have a very large influence on Arabic culture and development. So you could actually include them. In fact, speakers of South Semitic languages still exist in modern-day Yemen. They are not entirely extinct. But even if you were to only include the history that followed after the revelation of the Quran and the appearance of Islam, you still have one of the largest histories of mankind, as the Arabic Islamic civilization is one of the great civilizations of Earth and was the dominant civilization for most of the Middle Ages, where the civilization represented a center of learning, advancement and culture. And this history has even left influences upon the West. Though these are very complicated to explain, and I will just state that they exist. Getting more into detail upon this influence will be for videos in the future. But suffice to say is that Arabic civilization had a golden age where science, literature and other important things were developed. But history didn't just end there. Many things happened in the Middle East up until the time of colonization and imperialism made by the Western countries, and by the Turks even before that. And even during colonialism, several interesting things did occur. You had revival moments, and you had a lot of changes in the Arabic world during this time. The Arabic world was not just a passive actor. And going from history into culture, Arabic has a very rich literary tradition that has been influenced by Persian and Western influences. Some of you might know Alf Layla wa Layla, 1001 Night, as a series of stories and folk tales. However, how many of you have heard anything about Sirat Antara, the epic of Antara ibn Shaddad, a long epos about the 6th century heroic figure and poet Antara ibn Shaddad, an almost Odysseus-like character, but in an Arabic context. His chief poems form a part of the Al-Mu'allaqat, a collection of 7 hanging poems said to have been suspended upon the Kaaba, that is the black cube that Muslims go around every year. And speak about poetry. Poetry has always, since even before Islam and the revelation of the Quran, been a large part of the Arabic cultural tradition. And this is an epic tradition of poets with names such as Imr al-Qais, who was before the time of Muhammad, to Al-Mutanabbi in the middle of the Middle Ages, to modern poets like Mahmoud Darwish and everyone in between. Though personally I prefer the older poets to the new ones. The span of subjects that the poetic tradition has dealt with is enormous and includes everything from religious Sufi poetry to the works of Abu Nuwas, whose nature I will not be discussing here, because it's not really family friendly. And of course everything between, such as war, lost love, nostalgic passion and the like, have been treated in the poetic tradition. But in short, the greatness of this Arabic poetry tradition is rivaled only by the poetic Greco-Roman tradition. And I would say that the Arabic tradition does come out on top in certain regards to the Greco-Roman tradition of poetry. Due to the nature of Arabic poetry being very based upon certain structures in the Arabic language, it does require the ability to read and understand Arabic to truly appreciate it. But it's still important to know that it's there. And the Arabic tradition of poetry is still practiced today. And it's still seen as a high art form. I've even seen programs with competitions in making good poetry. And speaking about art, you also have calligraphy, or ways of shaping the Arabic script in various beautiful patterns, which is also a large part of art and culture. You also have musical traditions within Arabic culture that has even influenced music in the West, especially Andalusian music, that is to say the Arabs that colonized the Iberian Peninsula developed a lot of music that later went to influence Western traditions of music. As you might see, the Arabic world has an immense cultural heritage and an immense hugeness in scale, both in size and through time, and in influence upon other cultures and civilizations. I hope you have liked this video. I made it because I wanted to show that the Arabic world is much larger and bigger than most assume, and contains a lot of very complex and important cultural elements in it. It's not just terrorism and fanaticism, as some stereotypes would portray it. I hope you like this rather superficial overview of this fact. This is such an immense topic that it has to be somewhat simplified, and this channel will go through much more detailed things about Arabic culture and history in the future, so stay tuned for more videos. But if you have any questions, ask them in the comment section, as I am always open for questions and discussing various things. Please do subscribe, as it would help the channel spread awareness about the humanities. اشترك بالقناة من فضلكم.